you're charging them, then you have more wiggle room to raise your prices.
Yeah, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense to me. Do you have any thoughts on that, Mike?
Um, yeah, something I was thinking about like earlier is that like a client is never going to they're never going to come to you and say, "Hey, like I feel like I should probably pay you more." Um, like a lot of time they don't really know what what it feels like from your side. They don't know if you're they don't I mean they'll know it, like they might feel like, oh wow, like she or he is doing a really good job, but they will never know like from a product standpoint, like, am I paying this person enough or whatever? Like, unless maybe they have like a lot of experience with buying that service, like if they've already had like a ghostwriter or something like that, and then they know like, oh, I was paying my last ghostwriter like 3,500, and now I'm paying this person like 2,000. Well, then they might feel like they're getting like a really good deal, but they're never going to go like out of their way to be like, hey, I feel like I should really pay you more. Like, are you happy with this amount? Like, nah, they'll probably be fine with like paying you that lesser amount and having you do a great job because they'll assume that you're satisfied unless you say something, right? So yeah, sometimes you have to take a hard look at like your numbers and sometimes when you do, you might actually realize like, wow, for all that I'm doing, for the energy I'm putting into this, like I'm really not getting enough back. And you especially realize that when you get more clients, and then you're like, you just have like a ton of work, and you're just a lot more aware of what every hour, like what you need to be getting paid for every hour and stuff of effort that you're putting into it.
I think it's also interesting. I know that I think Talon does some of that where he'll have like a flat fee and then he'll get a percentage of the back end or sales. I also just wonder like how does that work mechanically? Do they have like access to their CRM or something like that and they're able or is it like a trust system? Like that also is like kind of like how do you protect yourself if you are doing that? Like kind of like a like you're making money off the commissions that are new. I get that makes sense, but I also wonder mechanically like how people set that up.
Yeah, it depends on the client and their offer and what their tracking looks like. I actually talked to Taylin about this and I asked him how he does it. And it's kind of similar to how I do it, but with something like email marketing, it's usually a bit more straightforward because, for example, I have clients who use Go High Level, and Go High Level is pretty robust in terms of like tracking clicks that come in through the emails, and you can set up what's called like a trigger link so you can see like when somebody actually clicks from an email and books. And there's like a tag that will get attributed when somebody actually books through the email. So we have that set up for all the different social platforms. So at the end of every month, I can go in and I can look at, okay, how many people were tagged with booked through Instagram, and then did those people actually buy? And this kind of goes back to what I was getting into before of like, I feel like I've relearned this lesson in the last couple of weeks because I did have a client that was like, kind of like questioning if he was seeing the value because he was like, yeah, we're growing my socials and like, yeah, we're posting a lot and they're getting views, but he's like, I really want to see how these efforts are turning into revenue. And so we went back and we did like a huge deep dive and like we're like, okay, let's like prove this to him, but let's also show ourselves that we're doing a really good job here. And by going back and like meticulously tracking all the revenue and cash collected that's come in from socials, we realized that we've earned him over $200,000 of cash collected. That's not revenue. That's cash collected actually like in their pocket. So we were like, yeah, this is what we've earned you, and this is what you paid
Yeah.
us. And so we've got him like a 400% return or something like that. And I was
Wow.
like, I should do this. I should be able to do this for every single client because I do think visibility is valuable. I do think emailing your list is valuable. Like all the work that we do is valuable in just that like getting this person's stuff out there to the world is doing a service to them. But I think if you can show somebody this is how my efforts are turning into dollars for you, that's what makes you like irreplaceable as their content creator. Because otherwise, if the only value that you can show them is visibility and views, you're more likely to run the risk of like, if they have a low month or things feel tight, it's very likely that content will be one of the first things they cut. But if you can show them, no, this is actually proof that I'm earning you more money than what you're paying me, that's what makes you irreplaceable to them.
What did that study look like, by the way, out of curiosity? What did you do to do that deep dive?
Yeah, we basically, so I went all the way back to when we first started helping them with content, and I tracked all the sales that had been closed from people who had been tagged with one of those social tags. And we added up, like, okay, what were all those deals that were closed from anybody who's come in from social media? And then every single month, what was the actual cash collected from all those sales? So this is actually really important because usually, like for something like a high ticket coaching program, you have like the revenue or like what the deal was closed for, but there are people who might pay it off in like a payment plan or something. So let's say somebody signed up for like $3,000, and so that deal was, they signed a contract for $3,000, but they broke it up into 3 months. So the new revenue closed was $3,000, but the cash collected from that person was 1,000. So I note both because if I get somebody who buys off Instagram and they sign a deal for $3,000, and then let's say they're 2 months in and they drop off, well, that's not necessarily a me problem as the content creator. That's okay, there's some kind of problem in the program. Either this person didn't see the value, or we didn't have some kind of follow-up system in place to keep them paying. Like, it's good to know where those people are dropping off when you can see who bought, what did they buy for, and then how much cash did we actually collect for them. So it was very tedious in this case. Like I said, that client uses Go High Level, so I had to go back and do a lot of like hours of meticulous tracking, because I would also close deals for this guy too. So I had my revenue closed from the sales calls, but then of those, how much of that revenue specifically came from social media traffic. And I saw some numbers that I was like, I need to see these for me. Like, I need to know this, because I think a story that I often play to myself is that like I'm not successful enough, I don't bring enough value. Like, that's like a limiting belief that I kind of battle. So actually seeing those numbers and seeing, no, I've closed $1.7 million for this client. I've
Damn.
collected, cash collected, over $200,000 of that, like cash collected, not revenue, specifically came from our social media efforts. And
Wow.
being able to see that for myself, but also show him that, feels very powerful.
It's amazing. Good case study.
Yeah, it was that was a big chunk of work over the last couple of weeks. But like, I honestly, I'm probably going to write some kind of post about it or something, because I think that if content creators can learn how to do that, and like even like content creators, marketers, whatever, like people always want to see the ROI in some way of what you're getting them. And sometimes it is visibility, because I know, Jerry, you've talked about like helping a client with his podcast, and the value you got him is he closed a huge deal from somebody seeing his podcast. So like, that's value. That's proof that you did something for him that resulted in more revenue than what he paid you. And that's what makes you super valuable. And not just valuable, but like, he's not going to want to cut you when he sees that kind of value coming in.
Yeah, attribution is one of those things that's always hard to track, and to do it at scale probably is a little bit difficult too. I'm also starting to really like kind of like double down on like qualifying people better and like getting better at like a qualify or a discovery call. I don't really have like a really good discovery process in place, but I realize that's something that's lacking in the front end of my sales process. What are your guys' discovery calls look like? Are you guys pretty thorough with them, or like how do you guys generally do that if you have like a new lead that you're talking to?
Yeah, I mean, I just have kind of like a standard set of like open-ended questions, but it always like, I mean, you start with that, but then you go where the conversation's gonna go, right? Um, but yeah, like you want to find out if they do actually have like a viable offer, because it's like, say even in this scenario, right, where like Kelsey, it turned into like $400,000 of like revenue in that. It's like you're not going to be able to do that if they don't have a good product and offer that like not sells itself, but like is already validated and already works, like you're just not going to get those results, right? So if you're really being um, if you're being more picky, like and you're at the point where you can I shouldn't even call it being picky, but like as long as you're in the position where you can like set like really like tighter standards in this in terms of who you'll work with, then you almost shouldn't take somebody if they don't have that viable offer. However, there are situations where it's like I've had a ghostwriting client where it's like the guy just wanted ghostwriting so that he could like potentially land new job opportunities when his contract is up. Like he was like a VP of operations, right? So it's like we're not looking at like producing like revenue from selling a product there. It's like it's just a different goal, right? So yeah, sometimes you do take on a person like that. And then other times you have somebody where it's like, yeah, we can actually really kill it for this person because they have like a validated product and stuff. And that's what will lead to those types of case studies when it's like the guy who just is looking for more LinkedIn exposure to land a job when his contract's up probably is not going to be the best, probably not the best case study for you. So,
Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody that I had like kind of partnered with on a client about this week, because I think yeah, it's like they need to have a viable product. They need to already be making revenue in some way. Like they need to know what that customer path looks like. So like, okay, we're going to create this content to get you out there and in front of more people, but what is the path from there? Like what is the next step we want people to take from the content? Is there a lead magnet that we're sending people to that's going to send them to a low ticket offer and then to a high ticket offer? That's not always the case. It might just be straight to a product, but we need to know like what does that customer path look like? And I think like for example, I don't really work with people that are like just getting started. It's not that you can't, and like there are those rare cases where sometimes you see like there's a real opportunity here and I believe in this person. So this isn't like a hard and fast rule, but it's much easier to come in and create content for somebody who already knows like what they're selling, what their mission is, where they want to send people to. They have a good product that they know, like, you know, when I sell people this, I'm not getting a bunch of like chargebacks and shit. Um, because it's also just kind of thinking ahead for yourself. Like, it's, you know, if you see this client that's like, yeah, I did, you know, $20,000 of deals last month, but behind the curtains, 18,000 of that people charge back or refunded or whatever, then are you really going to be the person who comes in and saves that client? It might just end up being a headache for you. And yeah, you might get like a couple months out of work from them, but honestly, I really want clients that I'm like, I see a path here. I see potential. Like I see how we could grow together. And those clients are typically people that already know what they're selling. They really believe in what they're doing and they sell a quality product or service that, you know, gets good reviews and people like it. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting that you guys say that too, because I think Mike's brought this up on past calls where I don't know, you're not going to hire a ghostwriter unless you're making like $20,000 a month in revenue, and who really knows what the profit margin is on like kind of what you were saying on back that because people could be spending a lot of money, we don't know what's really going in and out or whatever. So that's the other thing that is kind of a little bit clueless, but I agree it's probably a good idea to like really look at what they're doing and to see if how long they've been in business, like how they show up. Do they show up consistently, or are they like kind of like sporadic with the way they're showing up? And then I guess just figuring out ways of like tracking that information. I don't know, like maybe getting access to their CRM if they let you potentially to see if like you could see like if revenue is growing or not. But yeah, that's a bit of a complex situation for sure.
I think the tracking can look a little bit different. Like, obviously, the most helpful thing is that you take on a client who already is doing their own tracking of some sort. But I remember talking to Taylin about this because, like I said, my client has a CRM system that I've learned how to track with. But I remember Taylin saying that his tracking, he basically would get access to that client's Stripe account as like a viewer. Because I think you can give people different levels of access. So he'd be able to see like sales that the client was bringing in, but then they would set up specific like UTM links for the different socials, so they can track like the clicks and stuff coming in on their end, and then I guess they had a way of correlating it. I think when you do deals like that for content creation, where you are doing some kind of back end percentage, it does make it a little bit more of a no brainer for the client, because you're basically saying like, I'm willing to work for the revenue I bring you, or what you pay me, as opposed to like, this is my flat fee regardless of what results we get you. I just think it's generally more appealing for the client. But even Taylin said like he doesn't do that with all clients, because not all clients, it doesn't always seem like it's a good partnership both ways to do it that way. And it is a partnership, right? Like you don't work for your clients, you work with them.
Yeah. Um, yeah, when you're like looking at their CRM and all this stuff, like this that really strikes me as something that's like a lot closer to an actual partnership. And it's like even that in itself, um, it's like whether you're getting paid like say an extra commission for that, or like you obviously you'll have a base as well. It's like even just like looking into their CRM, even just looking into their Stripe account, um, it is a new set of like it's a new set of tasks. But beyond the task, it's a different type of role that you're doing there, and it's something like way closer to a partnership, and that like that has to also reflect for you as well, because you're not just their like you're not just even their ghostwriter at that point. It's more like you're like their full stack, kind of something closer to like a full stack marketer, I think.
There's something nice about like if it's tracked properly, about having part of the upside though is actually pretty nice if like it's actually working and like you're getting them business and they know they're getting business. It seems like Kelsey's point earlier that it'd be more sustainable long term, because it's like kind of like, all right, I've got you X amount more business and this is my fees or whatever. And then you're also just kind of getting a part of that back end, which is really, I think that's really interesting that those deals are being structured that way now. I mean, there's something to be said about that for sure, to be like, look into that instead of that flat fee, you pay me this fee. And it seems like it's people are more likely to churn maybe if it's like a flat fee model, if there's no real connection between the ROI and like what they're getting.
Yeah, and I mean it's not that you always have to immediately come into it saying like, for this many posts I make you, we're going to get you this much revenue. I mean, that would be a really strong offer, but with something like organic content, I'm sure we can all speak to this, that like organic content doesn't always translate into revenue right away, at least not like in the first couple months. And it might, but you can't always track that, because I've had people who like, I closed sales for this client who said to me, yeah, I've been watching his content for like 8 months before they bought. But tracking wise, because they didn't opt in through YouTube, for example, like they said they'd been watching his YouTube videos for months. But the way they actually bought was then one day they went and searched his company on Google and opted in like that. So when you're looking at the tracking, according to the tracking, this guy came from a Google search, but he's telling me on the call, I've been watching his content for months. So there's always a little bit of that kind of ambiguity with organic content. You can't always directly track every sale. And I think that's a good expectation to set with a client, is like, we're not always going to see every single sale that comes in from social content, but the kind of more, I think, accurate way to see social content, similar to like emailing your list, is like, we're nurturing people. Like some people might need to see 20 of your posts before they feel like they trust you enough to buy. And even then, they might not buy directly through that social platform. So I think that's really important to set that expectation. And I think like with an offer like yours, Mike, where you have a guarantee of getting them a certain amount of followers every month, for some people, that is the value they're looking for. Because for somebody who, let's say, maybe they are a VP in a corporate role, but they're thinking ahead and they're like, I know that I kind of want to build my personal brand because eventually I'd like to go off on my own. So for him, he might not be looking for direct sales right now, I mean, that'd be great. But maybe for him, he's like, I want to build up my brand. I want to show that I have some authority. So for him,
Yeah.
seeing 1,000 new followers every month is the value that you're getting him. And that's enough of a result for him to be like, okay, this is working because this is what we were on the same page about what I was signing up for. But I think even with clients like that, obviously, I think clients get really excited when they see their account going up every month because they see progress, they see it working. But even with clients like that, I still have it in the back of my mind that, like, okay, at some point, though, at some point in the future, we're going to probably need to say what's next. Like, what do we want to do
Yeah.
with this following? How do we want to translate this into a bottom line for your business? And maybe I just look at it through a marketing lens because when I got started in online business, I was like a marketer. And in marketing, when a business hires you to handle their marketing, they are always thinking about that. They're like, if you cannot show me how you're earning me more than I'm paying you, then this probably is a means to an end. So I always kind of have that in the back of my mind, even with content clients.
It's a good
Yeah.
way to think.
So like yeah, a couple things about that too. It's like because you'll see people, right? A lot of the time, the guarantee offers that you see are like, I'll there's all those like the lead gen guys where it's like I'll get you 15 high quality appointments like every month guaranteed, or you don't pay or whatever. Like I got like 1,000 of those kids in my Twitter request folder, right? And apparently they can all do that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if they've even had their first client. Um, okay, so the thing about like the 1,000 followers per month like guarantee offer, and the good thing is I feel like a lot of clients I actually worked with that like signed on for that kind of understood. They seem to just inherently understand that it's that like for example, I could have just, had a guarantee offer where it's like, I'll help you increase your revenue by 33% or something in the next year or something like that, which is like crazy, right? But well, then the problem with that is how big of a business are we talking about here? Like, are we talking about a business that does $500,000 a year, or a business that's already doing 5 million, or a business that's doing 10 million? Because you're not going to come into a business that's doing $10 million or yeah, let's just say $10 million. You're probably not going to come into a business that's doing $10 million, and just from you helping them with LinkedIn content, you're going to increase the revenue by 33% in the next 6 months. Like that would be a lot. Um, so versus if you're working with an agency that's doing 30 or $40,000 a month, where yeah, maybe like LinkedIn content actually could help them increase revenue by 33% in the next 3 to 6 months, because you're talking about a much smaller business, right? So it's like, okay, you can't do some guarantee offer like that unless you're working with one very specific narrow niche, like agency owners who are making like 30, 40, 50K a month or something, where you can come in and actually have that much of an effect, right? So it's like that's kind of off the table unless you're working with that one specific type of client. Okay, what else? Like leads or something. Like I'll help you get 15 high quality sales calls per month or something. Again, like that's super specific, where it's like you've got to be working with like coaches, consultants, agency owners, meaning that you're not working with like the B2B CEO founder type guy, where it's like he's maybe not even necessarily looking for like those types of sales calls. He might just want more like brand presence and awareness for his company and stuff, right? So, but the thing about like followers is that it kind of covers a lot of areas, because it's like the guy who wants leads and opportunities, if he's smart, he might also understand that if you're driving 1,000 new followers per month, that as long as it's like real, and that you're also probably going to be driving a lot of impressions with that as well. You're getting a lot of attention you're getting a lot of new connections in that. And as long as it's kind of like dialed in and you're getting the right kinds of followers, that like that has value. So it kind of like scratches the itch of like multiple people. It scratches the itch of the person that wants more brand presence and more authority, right? And it also scratches the itch of the person maybe who wants like leads and opportunities as well, right? And you know, when you have a bold offer like that, like 1,000 new followers per month, um, it it kind of acts as like, or and especially it used to, and it worked really well. Like about a year ago, it was working well. Um, until the LinkedIn algorithm changed. It's a whole other story. Um, but yeah, like it's like the guarantee was kind of a part of the marketing because I feel like not everybody was doing that on LinkedIn. Like I didn't see a lot of ghostwriters offering some uh, wild guarantee like that, and that's why it worked so well for me. Now, to come back to something else, setting expectations with clients, you you'd think that when you say something to a client like, "Oh, it's going to take probably like 3 months or something before we'll start seeing results," like that could sound as if it's just like, or and 3 months is like really that's really low. Let's go with something more realistic, like 6 months or something like that, and then like even more realistic would actually be like a year. Um, that would sound, it could sound as if you're just trying to like lock the person into a retainer for 6 months. But I thought about this in a different way a little while back there when I was kind of wrapping my head around why it actually makes sense to put clients maybe into a longer retainer and just be a lot more honest about what it really takes to like get things going so that you actually will be generating more leads and opportunities. And it's like I thought about myself and my own journey on LinkedIn. And it's like, I swear to God, for the first 6 months, I don't think I really got like I don't think I got any really high quality leads in that first 6 months. Like maybe around that fourth or fifth month, I had a girl who booked a call, and it was one of these where it was like she wanted more LinkedIn presence for like job opportunities. Like so, probably not going to be a good client. And she didn't become a client, right? Because it was like, and then I probably quoted her like $2,500 or something like this, and it's like, oh, okay, that's way out of my budget, right? Um, so yeah, like if we look at my own journey, it took about 5 or 6 months before I got like any like high quality inbound leads, and then it where the change really happened was around the year mark, right? And then where the it got even better was like the year and a half mark. And then by like the year and a half or 2 year mark, I put out a post that generated 40 plus inbound leads. So it's like, why are we telling clients that, oh yeah, you'll have like inbound leads and opportunities and stuff maybe around the third month, when it's not really realistic, when it's like your own on your own journey, it took about a year before things really started going, right? And if you're just more honest about that, like it'll probably lead to a better relationship where they'll understand from the beginning, okay, it's going to take some time, right? So yeah.
I love the idea of guarantees, but they also kind of scare the shit out of me because like the 1,000 follower things, like how do you know, like, every person's different. So it seems like maybe some people you're like, oh, I guarantee I can get it for this person because they show up, they have interesting stories. But what if you work with someone that's like not uh, inherently interesting and doesn't want have a personality, and like you have, and they micromanage everything. So how do you prevent like your own like risk and chargebacks in these situations? Like I get why the clients like, but I also like from a risk perspective, like worry about like chargebacks and like whether or not I'm able to fulfill on promises and things like that. So I always wonder how people do it with such confidence. And that was a bold move that you did, Mike, the 1,000 follower things. I mean, I don't think I could I don't think I could even do that offer. So like, I think that that's pretty impressive that you were even able to pull that off. But I'm just wondering how you guys think about that. Like, how do you think about the risk of that? And do you think about the chargebacks and things like that and like a nightmare of like refunds and whatnot?
Honestly, I have two thoughts on this. I think this might be a little bit controversial, but honestly, in my sales experience, you usually can get a sense in the first call you have with somebody, and like if you're spending like an hour with them, you can get a sense for, is this person the kind of person who's a chargeback kind of person, or like an I want a refund kind of person. And that's not to pass the buck off the content creator, because if I promise you a result and I don't deliver, you have the right to charge back 100%. And I honestly hope that I never work with a client who I run into that with, because I always try to set those expectations and be more than fair to people. And like, we all learned from Dakota Robertson, and he taught that like the strongest way to build an offer is to have some kind of guarantee to remove that feeling of risk off of them. And it makes you really have to own your offer as the creator to say, like, this is what I'm telling you I will deliver. And if I do not deliver that, I will give you the money back. So you got to be willing to hold to that. But I think when you do offer some kind of guarantee, you then have to be even more specific with what not qualifications, but with what the client needs to meet in order for you to meet that guarantee. So for example, if you're like, I guarantee that we will get you 1,000 followers this month, that comes with the stipulation that you need to be on the interview that we do once every month. You need to, if you want to be reviewing the content, you have 72 hours from the time I send it to you to give me those revisions. Like, if you're going to offer a guarantee, there's stipulations that come with that, because you're basically saying, I do offer this guarantee, but I have these things that need to be in place or need to happen in order for me to fulfill that guarantee. And I'm going to ask as little of the client as possible, but there are things that you're going to need to bring to the table for me to be able to fulfill this guarantee. And if you are not bringing them, then the guarantee is void. And I think it goes back to like setting those expectations on the first call, but also you can get a sense on that first call if somebody is an asshole. And like for example, I just put out the interview that I did with Aldous and Taylin told a story on that interview where he met with this client who was very successful, but he kind of had a bit of like a condescending air to him, and he was talking to Taylin as like, why should I hire you? And like, Taylin described it as he almost had like a dance monkey dance kind of tonality of like, well, show me it then. Like, prove to me that you're worthy of me hiring you. And Taylin was
Oh my
like,
God.
I'm not a monkey that's gonna dance for you, man. Like, I don't need you as a client. And not that he doesn't stand by the work he does. I think we all know that. But you can tell on that first call if this client is like condescending, and if he's gonna be somebody that's like, fuck this, charge back. It's pretty rare that those people like surprise you out of left field. You usually see
Yep.
it coming.
Oh
So true.
God, I got so many things I could say right now. This is great. Okay, so number one, I've never had a chargeback in like 10 years of being in the agency space, close to 10 years. Okay, so that's number one. But I actually fully agree that a big part of that is actually the ability to read people. And like one thing about me, I'm very good at reading people. Like, yeah, like I don't know how I'm able to do it, but I'm always able to, like, I just have a good gut instinct of what people are like very soon in the interaction, right? And I've seen it in my own life, whether it's like relationships, like friendships I have, that kind of thing. There's even been some times where like a certain individual, I will have a feeling about like the type of person that they are, and I might even say to myself, I don't like this about this person. But if I ignore it and I give them like I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and stuff, right? I can think of a situation where when I initially met a guy, I was like, something I don't like about that guy. But we actually became friends because I decided to kind of like look past it, and we did become friends. But then like later on, it that initial thing that I did notice about him did come up again, and he did end up kind of being a bit of a weird guy down the road. Um, so yeah, like probably a big part of how I've been able to avoid any chargeback situation is just not working with the people who are like that asshole type that would actually do that. Because here's the thing, I'm not saying that uh, doing a chargeback that there isn't a right time to do that. If somebody like actually did kind of screw you over, didn't do the work, promised something outrageous and then didn't deliver on it, I'd say that yeah, you do have the right to charge back. But it's like if it's a situation where the person like really did put in a lot of effort, they really did try for you and they did get you some sort of a result, like I think that a chargeback is kind it does become an asshole move if the person did like um, put the effort in, and it's like think about some guarantee situation where it's like we'll get you 10 leads per month or something like this, but the person got them like nine. And it's like, oh well, you only got me nine, chargeback. Like that would be a dick move, right? So avoiding working with the assholes and the condescending people, yeah, has definitely been a strength.
We have a question from John the Wordsmith. He asked, Mike, is your ability to read people, was that innate or something that you've learned along the way?
I want to say like it's kind of an innate and kind of instinct, but it's also something that I think you developed with working with more people. Like I'm sure that with you guys as well, after doing more and more sales calls and just interacting with more and more people, you get a better feel for what you're looking for in an ideal client and all that, right? Um, yeah, Yeah, like I've spoken with some other ghostwriters too, like even in the community, and they've told me about some sales calls that they've had with people, and it's like, wow, dude, like that guy was so disrespectful to you there, right? Like, and I'm like, I just feel like that type of like that type of, I almost said interview there because some of them they feel more like interviews. I'm like, I feel like that kind of sales call just never happens with me anymore. Like I don't even make it to the point where I get on with a prospect that's like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had one actually interesting, or that happened this like last week or two, like where a CRO and a like some sort of like professional ex player like hit me up for a podcast, but they immediately talked about like not having a budget for it and then only wanting help with like these initial first things. It wasn't like kind of like recurring type thing. And I had something come up and I had to reschedule. And then the CRO, the one that knew me and the one that like reached out originally, basically like I sent them an email saying, hey, like let's reconnect, gave him my calendar. And then the CRO was like, hey, like um when are you free to the other guy? And the guy like never like responded. So you could already tell like there was already kind of like a disconnect between like the way he was like acting, because it's like the other guy already knew who I was, and it seemed like you could already I could just tell that there's something like off, like it was going to be like an issue or something, that there's something there. So you could kind of see the pattern in the communication early, I feel like, and I kind of like just trusted my instinct, and I could follow. I mean, I usually follow with them, but there's something about it that I was just like, I don't think this is worth my time, because like it feels like if they're already kind of like being difficult to get on another call and they're not really cool about it, like if something comes up, like that's kind of a sign, like all right, like this, like if something really legitimately came up and I was like, hey, I need to reschedule, do you mind? And I sent them professional thing, follow up, whatever, and you don't hear back from them. Obviously, like it's our job as salespeople and like owners to follow up with people, but at the same time, like that is some a bit of a signal to some sort of degree.
Yeah, I think to add to what Mike said and to answer John's question, I think that the more you talk to people and like especially when you're in business and you're doing any kind of sales or you're having a lot of conversations with people, you innately just become better at reading people because you start to notice like patterns in personalities and patterns in behaviors and like I like doing like having been in a sales role for a while, like I've done probably around like 1,500 calls, and you just start to pick up on like when people have these certain cues. I typically know how that call is going to go. And like it is something to be conscious of because you don't want to just inherently paint people with the same brush and assume like, oh, you're, based on these traits, you're going to fall in this bucket of types of people. That's not always the case, but you absolutely get better at reading people the more people you expose yourself to and the more you put yourself out there. Um, but also kind of building on something you said, Mike, it's like the more calls you get on with people, the more clear you get about what you're looking for and like red flags that you now recognize as red flags that you didn't recognize as red flags like 1 or 2 years ago. And like I actually have gotten a little bit clearer on this in the last couple of weeks, just in terms of like who I'm really looking for like my interview offer, because up until recently I've really been talking with like solopreneurs, like sometimes people who are like creators and like they might already have a big following sometimes, but mostly just like solopreneurs. And I've had a realization in the last couple of weeks that I'm like, I think I need to move away from that a little bit. Because number one, I mean, if I'm like interviewing somebody who, let's say, is a solopreneur and they're a creator and they've done well, or like they have a following, I might still want to interview them because I'm like, I see a cool story here and I see something that I could learn that I could pass on to inspired idiots. And there's still value in that. But the likelihood that I'm going to maybe work with that person as a client is a lot less if they are a solopreneur. Whereas I'm realizing now, I think what's actually a smarter angle for me is to go for like startups who like they're a small team, they have a mission. Like I've started doing some research recently into like startups across North America who like are doing really cool work and don't really have a social presence super built out yet. Like they might have an Instagram page, the founder might be on LinkedIn, but people who already kind of have a team in place, and especially like when startups, like for example, I've been talking with this one that they're basically trying to like revamp the way North America handles recycling. Because I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but in North America, our recycling is a fucking joke. I can't speak for everywhere, but like especially up here in Canada, probably only about 14% of recyclable materials actually get recycled. And even the ones that do, it's just like a terrible practice that like people think they're doing good when they recycle something and they don't realize how much of that still ends up going to a landfill. So immediately I was like, oh, I'm interested in what this company's doing. And I check them out and I see, okay, they're a startup. They posted on their website that they've like gotten a bunch of money from funding to like, fund the initiative. They have a small team. Yeah, they have an Instagram page, the founder's on LinkedIn, but they don't really have a ton of social presence. And I'm like, this seems like a founder who probably hasn't been interviewed about what they're doing. And it's also more likely that this is a company that would invest in a service like mine. So once I started looking at companies like that, I was like, I think this actually makes sense for me, for people who could turn into potential clients, as opposed to solopreneurs. Even if they are doing well, I just think that I'm realizing that those solopreneurs are less likely, at least that's what the pattern has shown me, they're less likely to invest in a content creation service ongoing. Again, that's not a hard and fast thing, but I've kind of realized like I need to make a little bit of a pivot in who I'm prospecting.
Is that mostly a budget thing, or
I think so. I mean, the other thing too is like some of the people that I've interviewed already have like pretty established social followings, and if somebody's already like creating their own content, there might be those people out there that are still interested in being interviewed. But if somebody's already pumping out their own content, I think it's less likely that they're gonna invest in an interview service like mine where we do it ongoing, because like they're already creating their own content. So I think what makes more sense to me is to go for these companies that are like they have a mission that they're really passionate about. There's a cool story there, and they're not already pumping out a lot of content, because then they're going to see the value in getting somebody to help them with it, as opposed to somebody who's already doing it themselves. But yeah, a couple of the conversations that I've had recently with solopreneurs, it has been around budget, because they're usually a team of one or a very small team. Um, there could be another objection there that I just haven't unveiled, but I'm finding with the solopreneurs, budget is more of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that particular so they have like a product or service that solves that problem with the Canadian recycling thing.
Yeah, they're basically I can't even explain it succinctly on this call. I'm still kind of learning about it, but it's just like a new process for recycling materials because right now what we very much rely on is for people to like put their recyclables in a bin and then there's usually some kind of waste collection service that then takes it to a recycling sorting facility, at least here. But here where I live in Manitoba, I actually worked in local government at one point, and so I saw like the inside of some of these like municipal services, and I learned that like the stat at the time was that 14% of recycled materials get recycled, and it's
Yeah.
because of stupid things like people don't like rinse out their containers before they put them in the recycling bin. So if a container gets sorted and it's not rinsed out, here they just throw it in the bin. So it's things like that like the system that we're relying on doesn't really work, and these guys are basically looking to change that to make recycled materials actually get recycled and make it way easier so you're not depending on the consumer to take the responsibility because they just won't.
I think
Yeah.
it's smart that you're thinking about just like I guess if whether or not they can afford it. Like maybe exited founder would be something good to search for on LinkedIn because if they've exited, they probably have some sort of money, or like a Series A, Series B startup or something like that because that they have some sort of investment. So like having like signals, essentially that this person or this company might have money because I could see that like with solopreneurs, a lot of them are probably just small operators that probably can't afford an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month service, unless they're like really killing it. I would probably say that's probably like this, like maybe the top 1% of that filled. So yeah, I've been trying to do that too, just trying to like make sure that when I'm reaching out and prospecting to people that I'm thinking ahead of time whether or not this person will have enough cash to actually afford a service like what we're doing.
Yeah. That whole exited founder thing. I don't know if you perhaps pulled that from a specific ghostwriter, but I know a ghostwriter on LinkedIn where that's like his whole thing is like exited founders, and it's pretty genius. I've thought about that. It's like it makes so much sense. You're going for the people who like
That's right.
you are certain that they definitely have the cash for it, and they might be in that more like relaxed position too where they're still open for opportunities, investments, all that, right? Sitting on boards and stuff, but they've got a lot of money and they know that, like, yeah, if I put out videos and stuff and tell my story and this, I'll probably land the next opportunity, right? But they've got a ton of cash and they've got some time, so yeah, it could make a lot of sense. Actually, that would make a lot of sense for both of your offers, right? Because what I just described there is like kind of the perfect person, right? And they also might not be putting out much content as well because they're not a content creator.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that like maybe like real estate people if they're not on video. I don't know, maybe if like you're in an area like Newport Beach or something and you have like you're killing it in real estate but you don't have any like video presence, like could be and there's a ton of these people, like real estate people or real estate funds or real estate developers, people that raise money and then go develop like land and put apartments on the land, things like that. There's like all sorts of I think real estate has a lot of opportunity too, but I'm always thinking about that too because like who do you prospecting is so and it takes so much time that it's like I don't want to waste like an hour like going after people if they're not like the right fit essentially. And I think I told you guys this on a last call, but I also have Claude pushing back on me on like whether or not does this person have like I'll dump like all this information. I'll create a Claude project and then dump in like basically all the information on the person from their headline, their about section, their history, and then basically ask it to push back. Does this person have budget? Does this person have all these different metrics? So it'll be like, no, dude, don't waste your time on this because this person doesn't have any money or whatever, or it looks like they're all over the place. So I think that AI is really good for that to like help like figure out who to reach out to as well. So that's part of my process that's been baked into at the moment.
Yeah, I think that kind of touches on what John, the wordsmith, responded. He said, "Damn, every time I look for a magic bullet, it keeps coming back to show up, put in the reps, learn from mistakes, trust your gut." I mean, none of this happens. Like Mike doesn't learn how to read people without putting in the reps. Jeremy doesn't learn, how to prospect better and who he's looking for without putting in the reps, because the way that you learn what you don't want and what you're not looking for is by getting in there and getting hit in the face with it and being like, okay, so now I know, now I'm a little bit clearer on who I am looking for. um, but I'm curious, Jeremy, I don't even know what's the term, like you said, like looking for series A or series B startups. What does that mean?
It just means like different rounds of investment. So Series A is like your first round of investment, Series B is second, Series C is third. So it's kind of just
Oh,
like the evolution of like a startup. And I think obviously if someone gets like more money over time, then it shows that VCs like that person's product.
Mm,
That's another one too. Like maybe even that like venture capitalists could be an interesting one because usually they have like a shitload of money that they're playing with, right? And they're looking for deal flow. Like they're looking for companies to invest in, and they're looking to be like that um, premier person. So I don't know. I think there's and SaaS maybe too. Like SaaS software could be an interesting one. I just feel like there's so
mm,
much opportunity. So I think I also asked Claude that too. I'm like, who should I prospect? Like, who will have the money to afford a service like that? I chat with AI a lot about that before like I'm doing things, and I tend to create projects for every like new thing that I'm doing. And I think we talked about this on another call too. I want to develop something too where it's like if I record the transcript from the call, I want to develop a project that reads the transcript and says like, "Hey, is there anything that you see about this person where I shouldn't like go after them, or what do you see that you think that is good to go after, and will it be sustainable?" So I think that like building some of these processes into our workflows, whether it's prospecting, whether or not it's a green light go or whatever, is powerful. And I think that I'm kind of learning it all on my own because I don't really have anyone like I mean obviously besides our group with Dakota and whatnot, but I think that all that is definitely going to be helpful for like hopefully like building sustainable revenue because I'm not trying to get like someone that's going to churn. I obviously we have no control over that, but I can control my processes and the way I think about structure and things like that. So I'm really taking advantage of like AI in those situations. And Claude's really good because it pushes back on you too. It's like, dude, like don't go. It'll tell me straight up when I'm prospecting. It'll be like, yo, don't go after that person. Like skip. Da, 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 da. I was like, all right, cool.
yeah, a lot of the areas where AI is actually like the most useful is, and actually, Kelsey talked about this on one of the last calls too, where it's like having it read your like an agreement for you or something like that, right? And by the way, Claude, I've also noticed is much better at reading any sort of document. ChatGPT seems to really be shitting the bed on that one. It will tell you that it's like read it and stuff, and then it will just spit out some garbage, and you're like, no, you didn't read it. It's like, yeah, you're right, I didn't actually read it. Um, but Claude, like I used it recently where I like downloaded a whole PDF of like my manuscript for my book, right? And then I put it into Claude because I wanted it to create like a chapter outline of every chapter I've gotten there, and just do like I think I said like 3 to 7 bullets for each chapter, just so I could like see it in a really linear way of what all the chapters are kind of doing and how they're lining up with each other. Because I'm also like adding some chapters now as well. So you really want to clearly see like, okay, where would this chapter I've added, where should it go? And having like the bullets allows you to logically see where it should go. And like Claude was able to just like go through the entire PDF, right? And then and like create bullets for every single chapter, and it was able to do that pretty quickly. Or like Jeremy being like entering information of a prospect, and it's like, does this fit my criteria? Like that's where it's like it's really good. Versus like if you have it right for you, there's always going to be you're always going to have to like edit it heavily to bring your voice back. Or Another way like of using AI where it doesn't just like, like strip your content of your voice would be that you just use it as like to do a voice clip, right? And then you have it organize the idea like so it's like organized most optimally, but you tell it do not change my words here, but just arrange them in a way that makes sense for like a LinkedIn post. That way you're maintaining all of the authenticity and voice, and it's just arranging it in a way that makes sense because it is good at thinking logically. Um, yeah.
Interesting. This this last 10 minutes has given me good food for thought of like different people who might be a good avatar for me to reach out to. I didn't even know what like Series A, Series B, Series C startups meant, but that makes sense. And then the venture capitalist thing makes sense too, because if I decided to start, helping startups with this who like have a good story to tell, they've gotten investments, they want to put their mission out there, but then you also build some relationships with venture capitalists. I mean, you could start connecting people too, and there's value in that. Interesting.
Or yeah, yeah, totally. Or like Y Combinator, for example, they're the ones that produce like Airbnb, Stripe, etc. So like if you get in with someone like that and they have all these sub clients under them, like you could potentially be like the girl or guy for all those different clients underneath them. Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like there's so much opportunity. It's just about like how you spend your time and like what you. It's I always struggle with that too. Like how where like do I want to create content or do I want to prospect? And like recently, I'm also dealing with like going through like a having to I had a divorce that happened like 3 years ago, and I'm have to go to court in June, and I'm representing myself pro se. So like it's been eating up a lot of my time, and like I have like a 20-page divorce to create with like a property settlement that I'm going through. So I've had Claude helping me out to figure out like how to represent myself, how to file motions, all this shit. So it's also kind of taught me a little bit about like business law and contracts as I'm kind of going through this, but it's been eating up like a shitload of my time. So it's like one of these things too where I have to like compartmentalize things. I'm like, do I want to like spend time making content or do I try to like go out and prospect? And recently I've been kind of just like deciding more on the prospecting side just because I feel like that's like I still try to do like a minimum viable post schedule, but at the same time, like I also feel like prospecting is probably the fastest way I feel like to like get new business, even though I hate it.
Yeah, this has been something that I've been kind of wrestling with over the last week, and I'll keep this short because I know we're wrapping up soon. But just like the balance of like creating content versus prospecting and having conversations, because I like being able to put out a lot of content. I love doing these lives with you guys because I feel like we talk about content, we talk about business. Sometimes I get like some clarity from doing them, but then they also double as like content that I can post. But I don't ever want to just like focus on spitting out a ton of content and not doing the work that actually helps grow my business because I mean number one, I don't really want a client like I think sometimes you'll get those clients that are like, "Oh, you're a content creator." And then they like go check out, your page and like if somebody were to look at my YouTube right now, they'd be like, "Well, this YouTube has like 200 subscribers and some of these shorts get like 3 views. Like what can you do for me?" I think there's authority that comes with having your own established social profiles. Um, but I
You're
think there's kind of
posting everywhere, by the way. I noticed that. Like, I noticed you have an Inspired Idiots Instagram as well. I didn't even know that till recently.
yeah,
And you've got a lot of followers there too, like 8,000 or something.
yeah, we've had that page for a while, yeah. Um,
Damn.
but yeah, it's like a balance between like posting our content and trying to always make that better and also like getting out more content so that we can post. Like we've been working with AI to basically get like an AI assistant to like kind of run the whole clip cutting process for us. And my husband's just banging his head against the wall working with Claude and building an app that can like basically just do all of that for us so that we can
Damn.
put content out there faster so we can test more and like keep improving the content faster. So it's like balancing that, like creating content for our brand to help with the prospecting and stuff, but then also just like focusing on like having those conversations and and actually like doing that kind of insider work to grow the business. John says, I'd love a call just about Claude. Cool.
There's a lot we could talk about, I'm sure, with Claude. Yeah, yeah, it is pretty powerful, I will say. Um, Actually, one thing that John said about like it just putting in the reps and showing up and that, like, I also spoke about this with my buddy Gage recently, and there's something I said that because like in this day and age, right, there's just so many, you don't have a shortage of opportunities. Like there is so much opportunity out there. Like even though the economy might be shit and like even rich people are probably feeling the squeeze a little bit or whatever, like there is so much opportunity out there. But the biggest problem that also comes along with that is that shiny object syndrome, and I don't know if you guys are feeling this as well. I feel like it's an even bigger problem now than it was like 10 years ago. Because I remember when I first tried to get into online business like 10 years ago or whatever, I did have a brief moment of time where I had like major shiny object syndrome. Thank God I got over it. And then I realized my first big win was like food blogging that I then turned into restaurant marketing. And the thing that that taught me was if you, okay, you have to pick just one thing and go really hard at that, right? But like even now, more recently, I've uh, I've actually realized that like I've gotten shiny object syndrome again. Like you hear about all these different business models and stuff. Um, and different things that you could do, but like I'm really trying to avoid it because I know that like it usually leads to a downward spiral of just trying too many things and not just focusing on one. But basically all of the success and all of the results come from picking one thing that works, that you like, that you'll stick with, and just going hard at it. That's it.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
seems like a
I'm
good
I'm
note to
guilty.
end on.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good. I guess housekeeping. Did you guys want to just quickly chat about Mike? Did you want to move this to a different day? You'd mentioned that, or I know we're
Oh,
on a live call,
uh,
but did
I
you guys still
thought about
Fridays are
that.
still good? Or
Like we could stick with this, but I thought about that just that if you think about it, it's like most people are working a 9 to 5, right? So it's like, are we asking people to show up at like noon during their like 9 to 5? Um, we had that one day where we had like 47 people show up, and I don't know if that was like a holiday or something like this, but like I feel like there was something up with that day that 47 people were able to attend. I mean, like on other days we're having like five, six, seven people show up. So I don't know. We'll talk about that another
the
time soon, I
next?
guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll set the next
Cool.
one up for next Friday. And thanks, John,
Yeah,
for all the input. It was fun having you, and thank you guys both as always. You guys are always so fun to talk to, and I guess have a good weekend.
Yeah. See
awesome.
you
Great
guys.
call, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.